Hello crafty friends, and welcome back for another Simon Hurley Create video. Today I'm going to have 3 cards using the awesome Cakewalk stamp set, and we're also going to be using the party hats background. But isn't this Cakewalk set so adorable? And then here we have the party hats because, well, they're awesome, and I love how the little hats can come out. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started with our first card. We're going to put the background into our Misty. I took out all the insides of the Misty. We'll line up some of our Stark White cardstock by Simon Hurley. And then we're going to, well, I should have done this first. We're going to do our magic powder bag all over that background. That'll just keep embossing powder from sticking where I don't want it. And then I'll put it back on, center it on where I want it on the stamp, flip the lid down, and then turn it over. And then I'm going to ink this up with some clear embossing ink. Any clear sticky ink will do. And then once I'm happy with how much coverage I have, I will stamp that down. And I could have tried to stamp it again. I know my paper stayed where it was supposed to, but I was trusting the process here. I was trusting that I got enough on there. And that's the beautiful thing about stamping and embossing on the Stark White cardstock. It's a fairly smooth cardstock, so you don't have to worry about not getting good coverage. I'm going to cover this with some clear embossing powder. This one is by Brutus Monroe. It's called Icicle. And then I'm going to heat set that till those are smooth and melted. And this is the boring part. You really aren't going to be able to see much, but I will show you in a second that it actually did emboss, and it did a beautiful job. So I'll just keep heating that until that's all done. And then I'll show you we have this beautiful clear embossed party hat all over that background. And I'm going to make that pop here because we're going to do some ink blending. I'm going to start off with some Over the Moon ink, and I'm going to ink blend that all over my background. I thought this color was so pretty for a background. It was nice and it was subtle. And but then I'm going to come in. I do want to deepen those edges here in a bit. But these blend so beautifully on that cardstock, and they really make the hats pop, which I love. So here I'm looking at it, I'm happy, but I want those edges to pop. So I'm going to bring in some Guppy ink by Simon Hurley Create, and we'll just go around the edges. And once you do that, oh my goodness, I love how it pops now. It's so cool. So then I'm going to set that off to the side to dry a little bit. Not that it's wet, but I'm just going to let it dry, and we're going to do our stamping. I won't show you all the stamping for all 3 cards because it's basically the same, but I did want to show you this because I am going to make a mask of our little Artie Bear. I'm stamping him down, and then I'm going to use some Gina K mask magic, and then we'll trim him out. And it's at this point I'm kind of thinking that, you know, his arms and his chest are probably going to need to be trimmed down a little bit more, but I'm going to go ahead and fussy cut the rest of him out, and then I will cut out a lot more of his chest and some of his arms. You could probably get by with just masks of his arms. You wouldn't even need to have the rest of him, but I thought just better safe than sorry. I'll go ahead and have the whole bear. And then I'm going to peel off the release paper on that, and then we'll put that down over the top. And I've got my cake that he's going to be holding. And the reason I needed the mask is because I wanted his paws to be in front. So whatever you want in front is what you're going to stamp first, and then you'll use your mask. I did have one little mishap where the frosting didn't go, but I'm just going to use a black pigment ink to just color or draw that in. And now I'm going to color my bear. I'm not going to show you all the coloring of all the things, just simply because it's sort of the same thing, and we'd have a very long video if we did that. But I will show you Artie. We'll go ahead and do all of our coloring with our first little image here and everything that's going to go on here. So I started off with some E35. I put all the colors up on the screen, and I'm coming in now with my brown. This is my mid-tone, and I like to color lightest to darkest. I've said that many times before. And I know that there are lots of folks that can do darkest to lightest, but I would just say you go with whatever you're happy with and whatever gives you the best results. Don't force one way or the other, but try them all and see what works best. Now I'm going to come in with my darker shade, and I think this is E49, and I'm just putting the shadowing and shading where I think it might work. You know, there's really no rhyme or reason to where I'm putting it, which is usually the story of how I color. And then I'll come in with some E23. It was E23 is what I used for my lighter brown. Now I'm going to color the cake. We're going to use some turquoise colors because I think that'll really pop with that yellow-orange background that I've made. So I'll put down my lightest color just like before, and I'll color all around those candles. And then we'll bring in our darker shade for our frosting bits, and then we'll even use that just to add a little bit of shadowing on the edges. Typically with rounded objects, I do not go all the way to the edge with my darker shades. That gives you the illusion that it is a rounded image. And so then once I'm done with that, we'll move on to color the candles. I'm just going to use some Y35 for the flames, and then some YR18 for the candles themselves. And then I'll bring in some RV11 for his tongue and his ears. And then we're going to use the Tonic Aqua Shimmer pen. Now I'm going to bring in my circle dies, and I'm just kind of placing that there. And I am going to tape this down with a little bit of purple tape, but I'll be honest, I was concerned about tearing. So I made sure to only put purple tape down at the bottom in a couple spots, because if it does tear, that way it'll be able to be covered by Artie. And I was right. It did end up tearing. So purple tape is great most of the time, but sometimes it acts up too. Somebody was asking me about that, so I still have issues with it from time to time. And then I'm going to take my piece, my big piece, and I'll put foam tape all over that back. I want that to be forward, and then the back part will be recessed. I stamped my sentiment, and now I'm stamping the cake using some Remember Me ink. That's on the inside of our card panel, or card base. And then I'm going to tape down, after I pulled off all the release paper, I'll tape down my background. And then we're going to just use some liquid glue on our circle. You could completely omit the circle, but I wasn't concerned. I knew that Artie would cover the tears, so, you know, it was salvageable, and I do like the look of this. I think it looks kind of cool. I put some foam tape on the upper part of Artie and a little bit of foam tape or liquid glue on the bottom part, and then he'll be popped out, kind of like he's coming out of that circle, which is cool. I did color and cut a hat off screen, and now I'm stamping my sentiment onto some black cardstock, and I'll cover that with some white embossing powder, and then we'll heat set that till that is smooth and melted. But this card is coming along pretty quickly. And I do love that color combo. It's fun to add some yellows and oranges with those turquoises. It really makes the colors pop. And I feel like this could be a really great guy card. And so then I cut that or trimmed it down, and I'm going to glue it down with just some liquid glue. And then as a final bit of embellishment, I am going to bring in some Nuvo drops in the color Ebony. Just a few of them. I thought it would make Artie pop a little more, and then make our happy birthday pop even more as well. And then that's going to finish off our first card. I really do love how this one turned out. So much fun. For card number 2, we're going to start off by doing a little bit of ink blending on a panel that is cut down to 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. I have some Hefty Doodle tape, and I'm just going to use this to line it up on my glass mat and tape that down. And then I'm going to grab out some Woof ink, and I'll ink blend that all across the bottom. I'm trying to make a ground basically, and I thought that this color would be really good. And yeah, you can see a lot of my ink blended marks, but in the end it'll end up evening itself out and it won't be a big deal. I'm just going to put that all across the bottom. And then when I'm happy with that, I will peel off the paper, and then we'll get ready to move on to our next part. I am going to heat set that in between because it does get a little bit wet and it has a hard time sticking, as you can tell. So now I'm just going to wrap that around the edges because I don't need it to stick. All right, so we'll bring in some Sike ink now, and then we're going to blend that all around the background. So it would be like our wall, and I'm not going to go all the way to the edges. It's going to kind of fade out around the edges, and in those big splotches in the middle, I'm not concerned because that will get covered. I've grabbed out the party hat stamp one more time, and I'm inking that up with some Slippery When Wet. And then I'm going to pull in my microfiber cloth and just dab that on the edges because I want that to fade out as well. So then we'll take our panel, flip it right over, set it down straight, and then we'll rub. So that way the ink will transfer, and it does a beautiful job transferring. And then there you go. I love how that turns out. So it's subtle, but it looks good. And then we're going to do our stamping. I'm going to zoom through this because it's basically the same thing. I'm stamping out the ice cream, cupcake, and the cake. And then we're going to add their little faces. There's 3 faces in here. So we'll ink each of those up with a little face Love it. And then we're going to grab hands and legs. And then I bring this in because I wanted to show you that I do add the sprinkles with some Remember Me, and then I'm going to do some later Gator on this other one. And I did add, as you can tell, some of the little detail stamps on the cupcake liner and on my little ice cream cone with some other inks. And then I did cut and color all of those out. I didn't show the coloring because it's basically the same thing as before. And then we're going to start kind of laying out our sentiment. And that's going to say, let's get lit, which every time I read that, I have to chuckle. So our little cake is going to end up holding the candles. I'll stamp my sentiment, happy birthday, on the inside. And then I'll grab that same candle and I'm going to ink that up with some Sike ink, and I'll ink that or stamp that around the happy birthday. So there'll be 3 of those. It just looks like it's coming off the happy birthday. I'll put a couple dots of glue onto our little cake's hand so she can hold the candles like she's bringing them to our friends. Like, let's get lit. And they're so excited to get lit. They're jumping for joy at the excitement of it all. I did put a bunch of foam tape on the back of all 3 of them. I'm going to peel off all that release paper. And at this point, I'm panicking because here comes Max. And then I will stick all of those down. So here she's got her candles. She's going to hand those off to her buddies, and they're pumped. They are pumped. They're going to get to be lit like a candle. And that's going to finish off our second card. I love, love, love how this one turned out too. So super fun. Alright, for our third and final card, as you can tell, I have this sped up big time because all I'm going to be doing is stamping over and over and over again that balloon that's from this set using each of the colors that Simon Hurley has out. So we've got Bee Sting and Guppy and you name it, it's on there. I'll have them all linked down below, but this will also show you the beautiful array of colors that Simon Hurley Create has in that line. They're just gorgeous. The only thing I didn't add was the brown and the gray that comes in it, which would be Woof and Grr. But otherwise, I added all the colors. They're all just so gorgeous. And like I've said before, I hope he comes out with even more. Before I stamp my sentiment, I am going to add little strings to each balloon. I just thought that would really add to it, make it look like we're having a birthday celebration. And I love all the colors. I really do. And it was such an easy card to put together. I only sped it up because otherwise you'd see me cleaning off the stamp most of the time because the stamping was super, super simple. And, you know, like that's all I did was just stamp that balloon a bunch of times. And I love how this turned out. I think this, like I said, would make an easy card. You could replicate a bunch of these and just go crazy making birthday cards this way. I'm going to show you here in a second. I have a mishap with my stamping of the sentiment. I am going to ink that up with a little bit of black ink. I thought that I could go with almost a flat card here, but I stamped way too hard down. Like, it's just not necessary. I stamped way too hard, rocked it, and as you can see, my birthday has some shadowing on the bottom. So to fix that, I'm just going to cover it. Rather than scrap the whole piece, I'm going to cover it. And also to do so, I'm going to trim down, just to add a little bit more interest, I trimmed 1/4 inch off of one of the sides. I'm going to stamp Happy Birthday just on some black cardstock like I typically do, and then I'll cover that with some white embossing powder. And once again, stamped a little too hard, and so I'm just going to use my brush to wipe away any excess powder where I don't want it. And then I'll heat set that till that is smooth and melted and trim that down. I'm going to attach a little bit of fun foam that I've cut down to be a little bit smaller than my panel. So my panel now is 4 inches by 5.5 inches, and so that fun foam will sit behind there and it'll prop it up nicely without using a bunch of foam tape. And then I'll use my liquid glue to adhere it down to the panel and then adhere this down to my card base, which is just some more of the Simon Hurley Stark White cardstock. And then once I've got that down, I'm going to use that same liquid glue to put on my sentiment to cover up the happy birthday. I did want to add a little embellishment now that I've gone this far. I figured let's just step it up another notch, and I grabbed out some clear sequins that I had in my stash, and I'm just going to use my crystal katana along with my liquid glue, which you can tell I'm trying to get the very last bits of it out of here, to put down all of those beautiful clear sequins. It just adds this extra touch. And then once all of those are put down, we will be done with the card. But I love this. I love that you can pull out a stamp set and you can crank out 3 cards with No issue. Love that. So if you liked this video, if you liked the cards, if you enjoyed the process, please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already done so. I am typically on here with 3 to 4 videos a week, sometimes more, and I would love it if you kept coming by. So thanks again for all that you guys do. You're liking, subscribing, commenting, using affiliate links. Y'all are pretty amazing. And I will see you very soon in another video. Bye, everybody.